It's January 22nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dam. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Hamas's Israeli hostage release deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he rejected Hamas's proposal to end the war in exchange for the release of hostages as well as the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. While the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are reportedly pushing Israel and Hamas to accept a comprehensive plan that would end the war, free hostages, and form a Palestinian state. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he has dropped out of the 2024 presidential race and now endorses Donald Trump. DeSantis says it has become clear that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Trump another chance. Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko won the LPGA Tournament of Champions on Sunday, capturing her 20th career LPGA victory. It's also her 28th victory since turning professional in 2012. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he would not agree to Hamas's demand for a ceasefire in exchange for releasing the remaining hostages. Now, Netanyahu's remarks came after he spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden back on Friday. Our Kim Jong-sil starts us off this morning.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country will not agree to Hamas demands for a ceasefire.
In exchange for the release of our hostages, Hamas demands the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza. If we agree to this, our warriors fell in vain, and the next October 7th will only be a matter of time.
On October 7th last year, around 3,000 Hamas forces stormed across the fences from Gaza into southern Israel, killing at least 1,200 people, including Israelis and foreign nationals, and taking 240 others as hostages. Israel drafted a record 300,000 troops in its response and has been attacking Hamas in Gaza for 107 days now. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 25,000 people have been killed in Gaza in that time. The Israeli Prime Minister also reiterated his opposition to an independent Palestinian state, saying Gaza must be under the full security control of Israel, possibly responding to the U.S. response after Friday's phone conversation with Biden.
President Biden has made clear his strong conviction that a two-state solution is still the right path ahead, and we're going to continue to make that case.
The Wall Street Journal reported on Sunday that the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are pushing Israel and Hamas to join a phased diplomatic process. Citing diplomats involved in mediation, the three-step process reportedly includes the releasing of hostages, withdrawal of Israeli forces, and finally ending the war in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas media office released a statement on Sunday saying that there were, quote, faults in the October 7 attack. But the statement also said the attack was, quote, to confront all Israeli conspiracies against the Palestinian people. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In eastern Ukraine, at least 25 people have been killed by Ukrainian shelling in a shopping area in the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk. Local authorities said Ukrainian forces on Sunday fired artillery shells on shops and a market in the suburb of Tekstilchik, adding that 20 more people, including 2 children, have been injured in the strike. Authorities there have declared Monday a day of mourning. Russia's foreign ministry denounced the strike, saying security threats and the act of terrorism should not be committed from the territory of Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has not commented on the incident. Seoul says it's unlikely North Korea successfully tested a nuclear-capable underwater drone last Friday. An official at the presidential office told the press that based on South Korea's analysis to date and the lack of photographic evidence, the North's claims are likely to be exaggerated or fabricated. If the tests had proceeded, the North would presumably have tested a type of torpedo, but it's unlikely that it was a nuclear propulsion system. North Korea last March first declared a successful testing of its Hail-523 underwater nuclear system, with 2 more launches in 2023. The presidential office officials said South Korea's military is continuously tracking and monitoring the development of the North's underwater weapon systems, such as nuclear torpedoes and submarine-launched ballistic missiles, adding that the South already possesses an overwhelming capability to strike the bases that host such weapons in the event of an emergency. North Korea over the weekend continued to give updates on its top diplomat Choi Sun-hee's visit to Russia, saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his willingness to visit Pyongyang in the near future. We're joined by Dr. Bruce Klinger this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. If Putin does visit the North, that will probably come after the Russian presidential election in March, right?
Right. The election is in mid-March, so one may think that the preparations for a summit visit would take longer than that. But whether it's before or after the mid-March Russian election, it certainly will raise concerns or growing concerns of what North Korea may get in return from Russia for all of the ammunition that Pyongyang has provided for Russian operations in Ukraine. So it's over 1 million shells, perhaps 2 million shells that have been transported. So some analysts think that perhaps Russia will give them the crown jewels of military technology, nuclear warhead designs, reentry vehicle, et cetera. I think it will more likely be secondary, but still very worrisome military technologies dealing with, say, conventional weapons or satellite reconnaissance.
Dr. Klinger, the thing is there are growing concerns that North Korea may stage major provocations in the coming weeks or even months ahead of the April general election here in South Korea, because the North has done that multiple times in the past. What is Pyongyang really trying to achieve here?
Well, North Korea always does provocations before South Korean elections, except when they don't. So there have been a number of elections that they didn't do provocations. But certainly this year is expected to be quite a bumpy year. We've seen very strong North Korean rhetoric, as well as some artillery fire in the West Sea in just the first few days of January. And so whether it's tied to elections or not, we certainly are expecting an increased level of provocations, missile launches. And when I was in Seoul last week talking with government officials, they said they couldn't rule out another tactical deadly attack, such as the 2010 attacks on the Cheonan and Yangpyeong-do.
Then will the North's strategy work? What do you think? How successful will it be?
Well, if we tie it to the elections, there's long been the concern about what's called the northern wind. But I really wonder how many voters would actually be swayed. I think North Korean provocative action would simply affirm in both progressive and conservative minds their pre-existing idea. For progressives, they would see this as increased tension as the result of a conservative administration being too hard on North Korea, and they would want to vote progressive. Conversely, conservatives would say this reveals the true nature of the North Korean regime, and we must have a firm, principled policy by maintaining conservatives in office. So I don't really think it'll really sway the voters, but we don't know if North Korea understands that, and they may still do the provocations, whether it's tied to the election or other strategies.
Definitely. And the Northern Limit Line, which is the de facto inter-Korean maritime border, is where tensions may escalate, with Kim Jong-un, the leader himself, pledging not to recognize the NLL. Why this area? I mean, what significance does it carry?
Well, it has been the site of several deadly clashes between the Koreas, not only the Cheonan and Yangpyeong-do, but other naval battles. The Northern Limit Line was drawn by the UN command shortly after the Korean War, really as a way of preventing South Korean forces from going to north. North Korea has always disputed the boundary, but it wasn't really until the 1970s or so that they increased their denial of the legitimacy of the de facto maritime border. So they have a different view of where the NLL is. They see it as further south. So that's why we've had several clashes between the Koreas in that area. By him kind of affirming that North Korea does not accept the UN command or Southern interpretation of the NLL, it could be a signal that we can see more provocations, perhaps even naval clashes in what used to be the buffer zone under the Comprehensive Military Agreement, which North Korea recently abrogated.
Indeed. Dr. Klinger, before I let you go, last Friday, the North apparently tested an underwater nuclear weapon system under the development in response to the latest joint maritime drills between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Why is the North showing off such underwater nuclear weapons?
Well, it's a continuation of all the other weapon systems that they've been showing not only in the past year, but for the past several years. So we've seen several different types of ICBMs, which can threaten the entire continental United States. Now, with the Hwasong-18, it's a solid fuel. They've also recently successfully launched the reconnaissance satellite. Also, very recently, a solid fuel intermediate range missile, as well as any number of short-range missiles. So this is a way of augmenting their land-based system to have a maritime or naval attack system against U.S. and South Korean ships. And by having it, as they declare, nuclear tipped, obviously that's very worrisome.
Definitely. All right. Thanks so much for your insights. As always, Dr. Klinger, you have a good night there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko won the LPGA Tournament of Champions on Sunday, ending a 14-month drought. Now, Sunday's win also gave Ko her 20th LPGA title. Lee Seung-jae has more.
At the LPGA Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions in Florida, Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko ended her 14-month drought, winning the tournament with an overall score of 14 under par on Sunday. The 26-year-old, who held a two-shot lead going into the final day, fired a 2 under par 70 in her fourth round to end a long wait to add to her previous LPGA titles. Sunday's win also gave Ko her 20th LPGA title of her career and is the first since the CME Group Tour Championship in 2022. Sunday's win means that she's now just a win away from clinching a spot in the World Golf Hall of Fame. Another victory on the tour would mean Ko would reach the 27-point threshold necessary to be enshrined. A single point is given for each LPGA Tour title, with 2 points given for a major title and a point each for the Vare Trophy for having the best scoring average in a single season and being named the Rolex Player of the Year. With 20 LPGA titles, 2 major titles, 2 Vare Trophies, she has 26 points so far. Aside from the 14-month drought, Ko has had an impressive career that includes her becoming the youngest male or female golfer to rank #1 in the world when she first reached #1 in the Women's World Golf Rankings on February 2, 2015, aged 17 years, 9 months, and 9 days old. In 2015, she became the youngest woman at age 18 years, 14 months, and 20 days to win a major championship when she won the Evian Championship. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now to the 2024 Gangwon Youth Winter Olympic Games currently taking place in South Korea's eastern Gangwon province. The first Winter Youth Olympics in Asia began on Friday with a colorful opening ceremony. Our Song Yu-jin was there.
The Winter Olympics have returned to Korea after 6 years. The 2024 Gangwon Winter Youth Olympic Games, the first of its kind to be held in Asia, kicked off in the country's eastern Gangwon province on Friday. The Youth Olympics, designed for athletes between the ages of 15 and 18, offers a chance to meet the next generation of sports stars despite its smaller scale compared to the Olympics. Some 9,000 spectators gathered at the Gangneung Oval for Friday's opening ceremony.
The opening ceremony seems to be a bit smaller than 2018, but I'm excited to see the athletes, the Olympic stars of the future.
Our whole family's here to support her, and lots of friends and family back home will be watching online. Go Maya! You're gonna do great, win or lose. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and don't forget to listen for us cheering.
The 90-minute ceremony featuring K-pop stars, dance, Korean traditional music, laser art, and more was also broadcast simultaneously at the Pyeongchang Dome in Pyeongchang County. The highlight was the lighting of the Olympic cauldron. A few minutes after the last torchbearer, Korean freestyle skier Lee Jung-min ignited the cauldron inside the oval. The digital cauldron outside also lit up. Gangwon 2024 is the first Olympics to introduce a digital cauldron. Throughout the Games, 1,802 athletes from 78 National Olympic Committees will compete in 15 disciplines across 7 sports. The number changed when Albania's only participating athlete, an alpine skier, withdrew due to health issues. Still, it's a record number of athletes for the Winter Youth Olympics, making the Gangwon Games the biggest yet. The competitions will take place mostly at venues used during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. As for Team Korea, 102 athletes are participating, the most among all NOCs. The country expects strong performances in short-track speed skating, figure skating, half-pipe snowboarding, and bobsleigh. So with the opening ceremony, Gangwon 2024 starts its 14-day journey. The 4th Winter Youth Olympic Games will run until February 1st. 송유진, Arirang News, Gangneung.
Asiana Airlines will begin weighing its international passengers at Gimpo International Airport starting today. The domestic airline said it will measure the weight of international passengers until the end of January to calculate standard passenger weight and ensure the safe operation of flights. Passengers using Asiana Airlines international flights at Gimpo International Airport can go up to the measuring stand at the departure gate and have their weight measured but can refuse. Passengers will be weighed fully dressed along their carry-on luggage. Airlines are required to measure the weight of passengers at least every 5 years under the Transport Ministry's aircraft weight and balance management standards. The number of people suffering from depression continues to rise, but the societal reluctance to get psychiatric help is not dissipating. But a team of local developers have now found a way for AI to detect an individual's mental health based on mobile phone usage patterns. Ian-jin tells us more.
In 2022, the number of people in South Korea who have visited a clinic for depression surpassed 1 million. The cumulative number was greater among the younger generations, with some 346,000 people in their 20s and 30s. Early detection is key to fighting depression, but most people suffering from the disease don't recognize it. And due to social norms, young people are not encouraged to have mental health check tests that would help detect depression in its early stages. But now a new AI function has been developed that can analyze whether a person needs psychiatric treatment. When the AI function is installed onto a smartphone, it automatically analyzes the person's language usage patterns, both verbal and text. The AI diagnosis takes 2 weeks to a month, during which the AI has a mental health diagnostic pattern that processes the user's keyboard input data and real-time voice data. A very big advantage of this function is that personal information is protected. The AI information is not transmitted to a central server and is processed independently on the individual's smartphone.
The analysis function of the AI is based on learned data from patients suffering from depression. We've used a federated learning technique which secures the user's data from leaving the individual's phone.
The research team added that according to language pattern data collected, cues related to mental health analysis were more available when talking to friends and family in the evenings than with coworkers during the day. Also, in order to help the patients get early treatment, the depression detecting technology is being applied to an in-phone application. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Xiang, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in the U.S., where Republican candidate Ron DeSantis dropped out of the 2024 presidential race on Sunday, ahead of this week's New Hampshire Republican primary. On the same day, 45-year-old Florida Governor DeSantis posted a video on social media site X, where he endorsed former President Donald Trump as the Republican presidential candidate. Saying that he and the former president had some disagreements, DeSantis called Trump superior to incumbent President Joe Biden, adding it is clear that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. DeSantis was seen as a top challenger to Trump, but with most polls showing 70% of Republicans view the former president favorably, and with single-figure projections for the New Hampshire primary, he said his victory was unlikely. His withdrawal leaves former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, the only viable contender to Trump remaining in the Republican Party. Now moving over to India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to inaugurate a new Hindu temple in northern India on Monday, built on a site where rioters destroyed a Muslim mosque over 30 years ago. The plan for the $217 million temple is to transform the city of Ayodhya into a religious hub for Hinduism. The temple, however, is not without controversy, having been built on the site of a 16th century mosque, which was destroyed during a riot by Hindu nationalist mobs in 1992, which spread across the country and resulted in the deaths of 2,000, mostly Muslim people. In 2019, India's Supreme Court gave permission for the Hindu temple to be built against heavy criticism by Muslim groups. Security will be tight for the inauguration, with tens of thousands from various forces, including the police and military, on duty. Now to the Philippines, where floods and mudslides triggered by the recent heavy rainfall in the southern part of the country have left more than a dozen dead and affected more than 490,000 people, the country's civil defense said on Sunday. According to the country's civil defense office, 13 people were killed in landslides in Davao region. The Davao del Norte province is among the regions to have declared a state of disaster. Reports say the recent heavy rain has resulted in agricultural losses of over $1 million. Finally, in winter sports news, Canadians claim victory in both the men's and women's ski cross World Cup. 25-year-old Reese Howden and 29-year-old Hannah Schmidt both took home gold in Alberta, Canada on Saturday. It is the first time in 8 years that Canada has topped both men's and women's podium in the same World Cup. The competition, held at Canada's Nakistka Ski Resort, saw the hosts secure half of the 6 podium positions available.
Good morning. We need to brace for some extreme winter weather this week. A cold wave advisory is in place for most of the upper parts of the country, and feels like temperatures in the capital are nearing minus 15 degrees. The West Coast Jeollado provinces will see heavier snowfall with up to 20 centimeters in the forecast until Tuesday, with a heavy snow advisory in store for parts of 전라북도, 충청도, 제주도, Island, as well as parts of Hwangsong and Pyeongchang in Gangwon-do from the weekend's snow. Athletes at the youth games in Pyeongchang need to brace for biting cold temperatures. Highs in Pyeongchang will only get up to minus 12 degrees Celsius this afternoon. In fact, upper regions will have highs below freezing all day and throughout the week. And beware after spending some time outdoors, if you don't feel yourself, have trouble walking or have confusion even after going into a warmer place, that's when you need to get to a hospital right away. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
again, new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generations.
Making news just for you. It's January 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Sinyoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Happy Monday.
Happy
and
Monday.
Today we have a very special guest. It's Lee Jun. Welcome, Lee Jun.
Happy to be here. Quick introductions. I'm former national player in kabaddi and also 2019 Miss Korea, first runner-up, as you know. And I currently go for the lectures as a military professor because due to my previous working experiences as a military officer, and happy to be here and my pleasures.
I'm so happy to have you in the studio. And now both will be speaking on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Now, Ukraine is nearing the 2-year mark in the war against Russia, which broke out in February 2022. According to Time magazine, the average soldier fighting for Kyiv is 43 years old. This average is up by nearly 10 years from March of 2022, a month after the war began. At the time, the average age of a Ukrainian soldier was between 30 and 35 years old. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reiterated how his men are growing old and how they haven't been healthy to begin with. Ukraine's military conscription starts from the age 27. Parliament has been trying to pass a law lowering the age of those who can be mobilized to 25 since Ukraine has been grappling with a personnel crisis due to the war dragging on. And heavy snowfall has changed the itinerary for the 4th Winter Youth Games, which kicked off in Gangwon Province on Friday here in South Korea. The Korea Meteorological Administration issued a heavy snow warning, which prompted competitions like the ski jumping event to be delayed by hours. Some performances and skating sessions were completely canceled. Most parts of the region saw dozens of centimeters of snow pile up, closing off roads and leading to severe traffic congestion. The Winter Youth Olympics is the first of its kind to be held in Asia. It's expected to run until February 1st. And moving on to our last story. Back in 1999, France adopted the Pacte Civil de Solidarité, a framework that legally recognizes two adults who wish to live together or formalize their relationship without getting married. Couples recognized under pacts are eligible for many benefits like married couples have, including tax benefits, healthcare, and even child support. Recently, the number of pacts couples reached an all-time high. A statistics compilation agency in France found that the number of couples who signed up for pacts in 2022 alone reached 209,827. Now, back in 2020, the number of pacts couples has surpassed that of married couples. Observing such trend, French economists estimated by the year 2030, most French people would no longer follow the traditional concept of marriage. Instead, one economist thought 90% of the population would either choose cohabitation or pacts. And pacts was originally launched to thwart high divorce rates and protect the rights of same-sex couples. France only recognized same-sex marriage in the year of 2013, which was around 14 years after pacts was implemented. And studies show that pacts couples had a low separation rate compared to married couples. While divorce rates in France hover at around 30%, only 1 out of 10 pacts couples separated. And France's low birth rate problem has also been solved through pacts. 60% of France's newborns were born from pacts couples. And South Korea is also experiencing an aging population and low birth rate, which is why a survey recently showed how 6 out of 10 Koreans believed France's pact system could help South Korea with its own demographic crisis. Now, here in the studio, I was very fascinated to read this news story because this is a relatively new concept, cohabitation, but being legally recognized as like a married couple and reaping similar benefits is quite a new concept here in South Korea. What are your thoughts about the pact system, and do you think it could be effective for South Korea?
Well, personally, I mean, like, why not? I perfectly agree with the Donga system because marriage is not just like living with the person who truly live. It's like starting new life journeys together. So I think it might need more previous step or process to get to know each other more deeply with the times and figure out truly who they are with the daily lives as well. So I'm pleased to have this pact system as I wish and believes its positive effects to our low birth rate problems as well and as one of the options to take.
Exactly. Given the fact that South Korea does have the lowest fertility rate in the world, maybe this system could actually boost birth rates as we're seeing in France. But Walter, what are your thoughts on a lot of Koreans, 6 out of 10, answering that this system would be helpful, given the fact that we are a relatively conservative nation?
Yeah, I'm 100% for this PAC system. I think living with another person is one of the hardest things in a relationship, especially when you're married. And even as partners, it's a great way to test out the waters before you dive in, or to try before you buy scheme. So I didn't live with my wife before we got married, and we did have some troubles at the start. But using this system and making it feel like you are a married couple may actually help with, you know, when you split up, it might not be as, how can I say, messy as a divorce. So therefore, I think this is a great idea, and we should definitely have this in Korea.
And I think it really reflects our generation, particularly millennials and Gen Z's concept of what it means to be a couple. We're no longer tied down to the traditional concept of marriage. Instead, we could just be cohabiting. Now let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. We've mentioned a few times about how our generation is all about healthy pleasure. What's that? My AI voice secretary will tell you.
Healthy pleasure, a combination of the words health and pleasure. It's a buzzword commonly used among people in their 20s and 30s in Korea, reflecting how young adults pursue happiness while trying to live a healthy and fit life. Before, going on a diet and staying healthy was like a quest or a challenge. But now, young millennials and Gen Z are trying to find pleasure while improving their health, mainly by finding a perfect sport they can do as a hobby.
With more millennials and Gen Z pursuing healthy pleasure, we've seen a lot of people use the hashtag 오후난. It's an acronym in Korean that roughly translates to done with workout. And working out and finding a sport you could do as a daily hobby has become trending among our generation. So here in the studio, I'd like to ask, do you have your personal favorite sport, and do you do sports as a hobby?
Yeah, so I actually used to work out a lot. I have to admit, these days I'm a little lazy over the past couple of months, but I'll be getting back into it soon because it is something great, not just for our physical health, but for our mental health. I also started getting more into just thinking about my health in general and not aesthetically looking good. Saying that, I don't want to have a dad bod, but my favorite sport is football or soccer, and I do get to play that once a week. So yes, I am still trying to stay healthy at the same time.
Oh, okay. What about you, Heejun? Do you like sports?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Me as an athlete, I love workout and learning new sports. That's why I have much experience in my past doing stunt cheerleading and track and field as hurdle in my youth. And I started my sports kabaddi since 2014, and I kept it as my professional ability since last year, October, Hangzhou Asian Games. Quick info, the kabaddi is known as a very national sports in India, like same as taekwondo in Korea. So it's one of like martial arts, and it's also known as a team sport. Like we need maximum 7 people or 5 or 4 as depends on the games. And all you need is just all the players and mats. You don't need any balls or equipments at all. And all you have to do is like touching opponent's team's member with using your hands or fists. And as many numbers of the touch the people, you get the touch points.
I see.
Yes. And I currently also, I love the ball sports as well. I love American football and futsal. And recently I just professionally learned how to do the futsal at the academy as well.
That's really nice. So you used to be a national kabaddi player, and now you're doing futsal. But Heejun, these two sports categories we could say were traditionally considered quite masculine, or something that wouldn't be fit for a woman. Now, did you ever feel this way? Did you ever feel like the sports that you've decided to do or are enjoying are confined to a specific gender?
Like I would have to say yes. Especially the football and futsals, I used to be like confined as masculine sports, as you mentioned. So females are learning the sports like if they want to try or just give themselves a try on the games. Many people seems to say, why you're doing this sports? Just don't do it. You might get hurt, get your injuries as well. I know that it might be just truly worrying about me, but I cannot stop thinking that it's just like one of the typical bias in stereotypes or prejudice at limited on facing the imperfect women, I guess. And in my sports kabaddi, I also have much experiences regarding the genderless issues, because since I think the amounts of numbers of women's kabaddi team is same as the men's kabaddi team. But the problem is the numbers of competitions or championships conducted more limited to the men, not like women's. I guess it's because the men's games are more intense to watch and extremely to watch. But I think it's also one of typical bias, I think.
Exactly.
But these days, things get better. So India, they consider to conducting more league for the women's as well. So I'm very happy to hear.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, I want to be more confident to facing with these issues as athletes. And also, I just want to shout out my advocacy, which is there's no such categories under the sports,
We are seeing sports become more gender neutral.
Right.
And I guess nowadays, stereotypical gender attributes have been blurred, not only in just sports, but in many industries. But specifically in regards to sports, we're seeing a lot more men do stereotypically feminine sports like ballet or Pilates. Women are also trying out jiu-jitsu or boxing. Do you agree to seeing such trend among our generation?
Yeah, because I've been part of that trend. I have done Pilates before, and I underestimated how difficult it was. There was even one class where I thought I was going to pass out and throw up. I never realized how Pilates was so difficult. And it doesn't emasculate me in any way or form. And I also agree with the women when it comes to MMA. That women these days are breaking boundaries, and men are also breaking boundaries and going into women's sports.
Exactly. Now, Heejun, as a national athlete who's done kabaddi, would you say that women are now breaking barriers when it comes to relatively masculine sports?
Right. It's very nice and proud to see how it differs now. And as you mentioned, there's no such a feminine or masculine sports anymore. It's just under the people's different physical ability and the preference, I guess. And even in the field, like a full sail and ballet, it's more exciting to see the females and males, they play together at the different positions and make a great combination as performances. And also, I think as the audience, they have more options to see and watch the players for their favorite sports. And also for the player in my sports kabaddi, they are more increasing the huge fan for the female athletes, which is very nice to see, and has more developments in our kabaddi fields as well.
I see, but since when do you think we've started seeing sports become more gender neutral?
To be honest, I don't know when exactly it turns out, but I believe it turns out to our generations, the peoples like MZ have a more open personality and perspective. It also affects to our sports society as well, I think, because they are not only the sports, all the jobs and duties our society at some points. I think the gender barriers to the professions or the biggest crumble as well. And we can see the female builders in the construction sites and the male hairdresser at the hair salon. I think these changes gave us more courage and challenges to people, and especially in the sports, to many people to try to support whatever they want under their knees.
I think the societal atmosphere has definitely changed, which affected even sports. Now, we asked our viewers if they've tried a sport that was conventionally thought to be more apt for the opposite gender. Here's what 3 of them had to share with us. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with MIMS. MIMS said, I'm an American woman and I've always enjoyed dancing, especially tap and jazz. Recreationally, I also like basketball, badminton, and kayaking. The Power Ranger 200 said, I'm a male who really enjoys curling, especially Team Kim as well as basketball, ice hockey, volleyball, and golf. Leon Teo said, I'm a male and personally I don't like participating in physical sports activities. I do enjoy watching some sports though, like swimming, short track, speed skating, and figure skating. Now, I do think that along with the social atmosphere of us becoming more open to the concept of what gender roles have, I do think now sports is really catching up to that trend. But in specific, I would like to focus on how our generation is leading such genderless or gender neutral trend in sports. Now, why do you think our generation in particular is doing so?
Well, I think it definitely comes down to also the social media and also media helping change trends. I mean, I think I see a lot more advertisements of men's Pilates, men's yoga, etc. And this is that's broken down barriers of like, hey, I can do it as well. And I've posted online before when I did Pilates. It was really difficult, like I said. I have nightmares about it. But yeah, so there's also just influence from TV shows. We have a lot of variety shows in Korea. One would be like Shooting Star, which is a women's futsal kind of team. And that has actually spurred a lot of young women to go and play futsal themselves.
Exactly. Now, what about you, Heejun? Why do you think our generation is open to this?
I think referring my answer about the MZ, compared to the past, I personally think that we're living stepping in the more varied environments to try the various sports whenever we want and wherever we live in Korea. And also additionally, people more focus on the diversity, not only the one professions, I guess. So MC, our generation, could naturally enjoy them. And also whenever they're born, they don't get much stereotypes to choose what sports they want. And also I definitely agree with the Walters about the TV show influence on this gender issue. Like Shooting Star, Daniel is a perfect example for it.
And I also think it has to do with our generation being so apt to being fit. We're all about that healthy pleasure. So you have to do what makes your fancy tickle, I guess. Was that an expression you made? All right, now to find out more about how our generation is leading a gender-neutral trend, we're going to include a gender expert in our discussion. Stay tuned for a live interview. Let's include an assistant professor from KDI School of Public Policy and Management in our talks. It's Kim Jo-eun, an assistant professor specializing in social demography and gender and work. Welcome, Professor Kim.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, Professor, I'd like to ask you the first question. Would you say our generation is breaking down gender stereotypes, and is our generation leading a so-called genderless or gender-neutral trend?
I would say yes and no. The younger generation is definitely more egalitarian in terms of their gender attitudes and behaviors. And there's numerous statistics across the globe that has shown that in affluent society, the majority of younger generation is now supportive of egalitarian gender attitudes. This includes the belief that both men and women should equally share responsibilities in paid work, housework, and political participation. And moreover, many young people now view gender as a spectrum rather than a binary concept, understanding that gender identity can be fluid and more complex than before. So this perspective encompasses not only transgender individuals who identify with a gender different from their sex assigned at birth, but also those who identify as non-binary, gender fluid, and among other self-identified gender identities. So Generation Z, of course, has in particular developed a more nuanced language of gender that is often not fully grasped by older generation, including millennials and Generation X, marking a significant shift from traditional gender notions. However, our society remains significantly still gendered, despite these progressive gender attitudes among younger cohorts. So, for instance, while egalitarian views are more accepted and common, women still tend to perform a greater share of domestic labor, and no country has fully achieved egalitarian division of labor, paid labor and unpaid labor between genders. And also the gender gap in domestic labor is narrowing, and progress has been uneven and stalled in some countries, particularly in countries like South Korea. And while this also the acceptance of gender fluidity is increasing, the majority of people still identify themselves as either female or male. So this suggests that there is a great hesitancy among many, including younger cohorts, to fully embrace these new practices in gender norms. So therefore, I would say it's premature to assert that younger generation is now leading a genderless trend.
And why do you think we're seeing this type of trend apart from sports? Where else are we seeing things be more open to both genders?
So in terms of factors, I would say the gender neutrality can be attributed to mainly two factors. One is changing labor market conditions and cultural shift. And first, the labor market has undergone significant changes since 1970s. And unlike the past where stable lifelong employment was the norm and supported the male breadwinning model, today's labor market is precarious and less stable. So this instability, of course, undermines the notion that men should be the solely breadwinners, leading to a necessity for women to actively participate in the labor force. So, of course, this has led to a greater acceptance of more flexible and egalitarian gender relations. And second is a cultural shift. Cultural dynamics are the key in especially more affluent societies. And modern values increasingly now emphasis on postmodern, post-materialistic concepts such as self-actualization and self-fulfillment. This is very different from previous generation who like to place greater emphasis on family formation and adherence to the conventional norms. And this shift in cultural values creates an environment where individual self-expression is more valued more highly than conforming to traditional standards. So, of course, this cultural shift empowers now many young people to express their gender identities more freely and pursue their interests and ambitions without being constrained by traditional gender norms. And of course, in addition to sport, these economic and cultural changes are reflected in various dimensions of life, including fashion and dating styles and professional domains.
I see.
Thank you, Professor. And I'd like to give you like today's last questions. And how would you diagnose these trends? And are we going to the right directions, or what are some pros and cons?
So the trend toward gender neutrality presents both opportunities and challenges, of course. Personally, I'm somewhat skeptical about whether this genderless trend will become the mainstream. I strongly still believe that in respecting everyone's gender and gender identity is crucial. The growing social acceptance in this sense of gender fluidity is a positive step in lifting many prejudices and biases faced by non-binary and gender atypical individuals, like the sportswoman who is participating. You mentioned the traditionally masculine domain. So by moving away from rigid gender roles, we open up possibilities for individuals to express themselves more freely and authentically, which can lead to a greater, personal fulfillment and social harmony. However, I do have concerns regarding potential political conflicts. So many conventional religious groups and political groups may not support these changing gender relations, leading to backlash against the trend toward gender neutrality. So this opposition could create stark political divisions and conflict, potentially hindering progress towards inclusivity and acceptance.
Exactly,
so I would
Professor
say
Kim,
navigating.
Due to time, we'll have to listen up to here. But as you mentioned, there still needs a lot more work other than just seeing gender neutrality in sports. In order to see it in other dimensions of society, we do need to delve into deeper issues. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing your insights today.
Thank you.
But we are going in the right direction. Gender fluidity is the first step. So how do you guys hope to see society evolve when it comes to setting and dealing with gender stereotypes and roles?
I think we just have to get over traditional masculinity, and men should be also free to do whatever sport they want to do, and they shouldn't feel emasculated for doing that. So yes, I think, especially talking as a man, let's not, confine ourselves to just manly sports.
All right, what about you, Heejin?
I think respect to diversity is the most important matter, I think. And not only for the women, we need to understand the differences, but when it comes to sports, remember there's no such boundaries to do it. And as personally, I want to push myself to taking this lead, this metaphor as formal national player. I love to see the changes in the futures.
And hopefully we'll see such changes soon, as we are going the right direction. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Woo Hee-jun.
I love it to be here.
It was a pleasure having you on our show, Hee-jun.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?